It's all good. Together? It's all good. And what is it that's good? Life, learning, growth. It's all here. It's not about locking down into anything. You know, that probably more than anything in my life, hitchhiking cross country in 1971 and 72 taught me that I can't control anything. I'm just kind of moving and flowing with life. I don't recommend anybody do that. I can tell you some stories that would tell you why. But it's about learning how to be flexible in the face of life. Not being locked down. Not having our minds so made up and being so willful that we forget that life is a flow. That life is really a balancing act between the pairs of opposites. You know Dr. Seuss. And you know the famous, oh, the places you'll go. The famous quote from it goes, "You step with care and great tact, and remember that life is a great balancing act. Never forget to be dexterous and deft, and don't mix up your right foot with your left." Don't mix up your right foot with your left. What does that mean? That means that sometimes you got a right foot, and sometimes you got a left foot, and sometimes you're moving ahead, and you got to know which one is which, and know when it's time to come forward with strength, when it's time to surrender, when it's time to speak out, when it's time to be quiet. It's like Ecclesiastes 3, there's a time and a place for everything. But this is confusing. Don't you want to have somebody tell you exactly how it's done? What you're supposed to do in every moment? Wouldn't you like that? Don't listen to them. They're probably a sociopath. You know? Nobody outside of you is going to give you those answers. These answers have to come from within. I had a friend of mine who was born and raised in Unity like Lynn and I were. And she went to a church, and Gertrude was the minister. She was on the top floor. She was with the adults. And her sister Mildred was in the basement with all the children. And they were wonderful people, and they taught the exact opposite thing. Gertrude got her position because after the divorce with her co-minister husband, they took a vote in the church and she won. So you can imagine Gertrude was one tough cookie. And Gertrude told people, stand up for yourself, don't be a doormat. Speak up. You know, Jesus said, let your yeses be yes and your no's be no. It's time for you to, don't be a doormat. That's fine. Then she went downstairs and there was Mildred. Mildred telling all the children, Jesus just wants you to love your neighbor as yourself. Forgive the people who have harmed you. You need to be yielding. You need to open your heart. This is just, And she says, I couldn't figure out which way to be. And of course, you know what the answer is, don't you? It's a balancing act. Life's a great balancing act. I mean, Dr. Seuss said it. Life's a great balancing act. You got to be dexterous and deft and know your right foot from your left. I got a visual aid. What's this? It's the yin-yang symbol. And why, pray tell, is there a white circle in the middle of the black half? And why is there a black circle in the white half? Because it's not just all one and the other. Even in the midst of the one, you got to move to the other. You've got to be open. You say, but how am I going to do this? I don't know. Am I going to have a voice telling me in the back of my head? How do I get in touch with this? And the truth is that your heart always knows. My heart always knows what to do. Together? My heart always knows what to do. How do you get in touch with your heart? Well, sometimes the simplest way is the best way. Put your hand on your heart and assume that your heart already knows. You can ask your heart questions. You could say, if my heart knew, what would my heart tell me? And you can journal that out. You have to take your hand off your heart and journal, but then you put it back on your heart. What is my heart telling me about this? Sometimes your heart's quiet. Usually your heart speaks to you not in words, but in a feeling, as a feeling and a faith. But you'll know what to do. I've often shared about the time when everything broke loose in my life. 1977, I had a plan in my life. I was going to go into the fire department for 20 years and save my money and then go into ministerial school. And I had everything all figured out. And in the same month, I flunked out of firefighter school faster than anybody in the history of the firefighter school. They told me that they had to let me go, even though I could do everything they asked me to, because just the way I looked, that people would lose faith in their fire department. So that was the end of that. My girlfriend was out of the country and she wasn't telling me the truth about some things. My spiritual teacher, my meditation teacher, was falsely accusing my best friend of some things. The two neighbors upstairs were each beating up their wives and kids, and my landlord was taking their side. And then I was in a situation where I was working in a hardware store, and the hardware store was in an area where there were mostly retired naval officers, many of whom had a drinking problem, would come in to be very abusive. So it was a really tough situation, and I didn't like anything. And I would just sit, and so I sat down on the edge of my bed, and I said, help. That's all I did. I just said, help together. Help. And then I felt this warmth in my heart, a physical warmth in my heart. It wasn't imaginary, it was real. And that physical warmth in my heart, I heard, I didn't audibly, but I heard with my feeling nature the words, behold, I give you a new heart. I give you a heart of flesh. I take away your heart of stone. And I knew, in that moment, I knew that all I had to do in any situation, all I had to do is just make the decision that I would go into my heart whenever a customer was being outrageous or something was going on, and I'd know what to do. And as long as I was willing to do that, as long as I was willing to be in that heart space, I would know what to do. So sometimes a customer would go off on me and I would just laugh about it. Other times I'd turn around and walk away. Other times I'd just ignore it. Rarely I would just say something. And it would always be the right thing. And in every area of my life. And that is when I realized, my heart told me, I needed to go into ministerial school the very next year. So I got another 20 years of ministerial experience. You know, my heart knew. Your heart already knows. And it's not what your mind. Jesus said, don't judge by appearances, judge right judgment. What's judging by appearances? Judging with your head. Judging with your head. The evaluation with your head. Figuring everything out. And you know what? There's a place for that. It works great when you're doing your taxes or balancing your checkbook. Don't try to do that with your right brain. But realize that there's a part of you. There's a part of you that knows how to live in the now moment and is open at any given time to what is needed. And what is needed is always a point of balance. You know, there's a Native American teacher. She is from the Oneida Nation in the Iroquois tribe, and her father was a shaman and a storyteller, a keeper of the stories. And he raised her with great wisdom. But her mother was white, and she was an educator, and she was quite wise too in a different way. And her father used to say to her, okay, here's a situation. He gave her maybe a problem or a circumstance, and he'd say, stand on your left foot. And she'd stand on her left foot, and he'd say, now, tell me what my people would say about this situation. And so she'd talk about it. How the Native Americans, she said, with wholeness, with the spirit of wholeness. How would you approach this with a spirit of wholeness? Okay? Now, stand on your right foot. Stand on your right foot. Now, how would your mother see this? And she would tell. And it was sequence. It was the left brain, the analytical, point by point by point by point. Okay, now, stand on both feet and tell me what you see. Because it's not good enough to do one all the time or the other all the time. You need both. Now, we often in unity, we tend to be very right-brained. And sometimes that can be a bit of a trap because you need both from time to time. You need the balance in your life. You know, I heard the Prairie Home Companion. You ever listen to Prairie Home Companion? And how they have fake ads, and one of the ads is for Al's Holistic Car Repair. Yeah. We use acupressure and massage to gently help your muffler know the truth about itself so that it can raise to a level of consciousness where it heals itself. Doesn't work that way, right? So there's a time in life to do one thing or another, and you've got to be flexible. You've got to be open. You don't get locked down in a particular way. And yet there is a time for every purpose under heaven, as Ecclesiastes says. There's a time to approach in this way, and there's a time to approach in that way. So you say, again, you're thinking, somebody in this room is thinking, I don't know which time to do what. Your heart knows. How do I get in touch with that? Maybe just put your hand on your heart and ask. How do you get a relationship with anybody? Well, you hang out with them and you talk to them, right? Well, your heart's waiting. Your heart's waiting. Ask those questions. You say, well, what good's my heart? Your heart is a connection with the heart of God. Your heart's a connection. It's that consciousness, that Christ consciousness, that is always there, always humming. My heart's always humming together. My heart's always humming. It's always there. It's just always talking to you, but we don't always listen. So we got to do that. You say, well, what did Jesus teach about this? Well, very interesting, because there were times Jesus went on one side, times he went on the other. Well, I want to know the right answer. That's why I'm looking in. But you look at it and you find out that one time he said, blessed are the peacemakers. And then he says, I didn't come to bring peace but a sword. Which meant that there were going to be conflicts in your life. You're going to deal with it. There are times when they were going to go through Samaria. Samaria was the bad neighborhood in Israel. You know, and he'd say, oh no, we're going to avoid that. We're going to go around it. And other times we're going to go right through it. And there were times that Jesus would speak very, very firmly to the Pharisees, but when he was in his trial, he didn't speak a word. He didn't say a word. Why? Because that's what was needed at the time. You say, well, gee, how am I going to know? How am I going to know? Your heart knows. Your heart, it's as simple as that. And you know, that's one of the most powerful meditation techniques you can ever do, is move into your heart. But maybe you just do it for 30 seconds. However you do it, engage with your heart, and then you'll know what to do. You'll know when it's time to do what's needed. You know, Jesus, there's that famous story where he went to the home of Mary and Martha. Let me see if I can find it here. As Jesus and his disciples were on their way, he came to the village where a woman named Martha opened up her home to him. She had a sister named Mary who sat at the Lord's feet listening to what he had to say. Now, Mary's one foot and Martha's the other. Martha, however, and this is key, was distracted and upset by all the preparations that she felt she had to make. She came to him and she said, don't you even care that my sister's leaving me to do all the work by myself? You tell her to help me. Martha, Martha, he answered, you are so worried and distressed about so many things, but only one thing is needed. Mary has chosen what is better. It will not be taken away from her. What is the one thing that's needed? Oneness. What's the one thing where everything comes out? Oneness. He didn't say that it's wrong to fix supper. He didn't say to Martha, you should not be doing this work. He was saying, in effect, here you've got Jesus sitting in your living room teaching, and you're running around like a chicken with your head cut off. It's time to sit down, shut up, and listen. It's a time for that. You know, when your kid comes up to you and you're involved in, your favorite show or reading your favorite thing or playing Pokemon Go or whatever you're doing, and your kid comes up to you with, look, let me show you. You drop what you're doing and you're present. That doesn't mean that there's not a time to set a boundary and you got to get things done. But being in the now moment, being in the here and now, following your guidance, and knowing when it's time to do one thing and then you got to drop it and then do the other. You know, when I was in my first church, it was a church where nothing had changed in 30 years. And the minister before me had only been there for 2 years, and she didn't make any changes, but they still ran her out of town. So I was in there, and my guidance was so clear. It came very clearly in meditation, change everything a little. Everything a little. So I moved the chair over here. It was 10:30, it was 11. It was on Tuesday, it was Thursday. And you can imagine some of the reactions. And when the dust settled, I was meditating, and I got so strongly, now, don't change a thing. Don't change anything until you further notice. And I did. I just changed it. I just did that. It was time to do one. It was time to do another. Another time I came into a church that was in constant upset and uproar. They'd gone through crises and scandals and always new stuff all the time. And they were going through so many things. And I got in meditation my very first week before I got there. Tell them that you're going to do nothing new for a year. Nothing. Nothing for a year. Nothing. And I didn't understand this. So, I mean, after all, you should go in and don't do anything for a year. Nothing new. Well, you know what? I found out. After I announced it, I told everybody, we're not going to do anything for a year. And about 20 people over the next few weeks came to me with burning, let's do this, let's do this, let's do this, let's do this. And I was off the hook because I could just say, well, we're not going to do anything for a year. And most of those people just spun off to another place. So what we did then after a year, we were able to engage it. I'm telling you this because it's not about a formula. It's about following your guidance. What does your heart tell you to do? What in your job situation are you supposed to do? You're a different person, perhaps, in one environment than another. And you need to be open and blend energies with the people around you. Blend energies. What do I mean by that? Remember when Jane Hart told me this? You need to learn to blend energies. That means perhaps standing there and saying silently when you breathe in, I am, And silently when you breathe out, you, as you're looking and listening to them, I am you. Blending energies. Or saying in your meditation or prayer, I don't know how to love this person, but you do. God, show me how to love this person. Sometimes loving this person is getting the other way. That's a way to love them. Sometimes loving is engaging. Sometimes it's, and you don't have a formula. That's the problem. On Tuesday, you're supposed to learn this. And on Thursday, you're supposed to learn this. And maybe you're standing up for yourself, doggone it. And maybe you are being yielding and releasing and surrendered. And it's being in the now moment. So there are no formulas. It's about being dexterous and deft and knowing your right foot from your left. It's about being flexible. Being flexible and moving with the changes of life. And being willing to just do what's needed in any given moment. I remember the wonderful story that Edwene Gaines told me when we were in ministerial school. This is when Edwene Gaines, how many of you read Edwene Gaines' books or her stuff? She was poor. This is before she really started doing all that stuff. So here she was, but she had a teenage daughter. They had no food in the house. There was no food in the refrigerator. Her daughter came and says, Mom, you've got to do something about this. There's no food in the refrigerator, and don't tell me you're going to pray about it. And Edwene said, well, I'm going to pray about it. So she did pray about it. And later that day, she got a call from the Safeway supermarket there in Lee Summit, Missouri. And they said, you have won, in today's dollars, $300 in groceries. And she says, you come here, you get down with me, and we're going to give thanks to God who answered our prayers. She says, well, while you're thanking God for the answered prayer, why don't you thank God for a daughter who went down to Safeway and filled out 200 There's a time for one thing, and there's a time for another. What are you going to do to meet the needs of the people around you? There's somebody in your life who needs a kind word, who needs some tolerance, who needs some space. Give them space. Give them some space. There's also another situation where you need to set some boundaries. You may need to make some distinctions. How do you know? You know because your heart tells you. And you say, but how am I going to learn this? You got to practice. It's like anything in life. So you do this. You put your hand here. You get in touch. You find out that your heart has that knowledge, that awareness. And you don't try to be so spiritual all the time that you're no earthly good. I remember Sue Sicking, the Unity minister, said, if you're too physical, you're disgusting. If you're too mental, you're a bore. And if you're too spiritual, you're not even there. And I had a friend who went to India and studied with a very great teacher, a yoga teacher. And the first day, he came out and he said, the first thing I tell my students is that you got to learn how to pay your own rent. That was the first thing. Don't come here to escape. Your spiritual practices are not here to escape. They're about taking personal responsibility for your life. But sometimes that personal responsibility is in letting go, and sometimes it's in taking action. But always, always guided from within by the guidance that's in your heart. So each one of us, every day, the purpose of life, every day is a lesson to bring us into our heart. Bring us into our heart and know that life is a great balancing act. That this is that desire of the universe to become one. You know, electricity flows because of this. Positive to negative to positive to negative. Romance happens because of this. On the microscopic or on the subatomic level, that's why there's flow. On the cosmic level, that's why the energy is flowing in the universe. All because of this. All because of this. When I was a little kid, my dad had industrial magnets in his hardware store. And he sold his nails in bulk. So you didn't want to put your hand in the bin and grab a bunch of nails because you'd hurt yourself. So what he did is you take the industrial magnets, and there were two of them that were stuck together, positive to negative, and you'd break it apart and you'd stick one end in and it would pull out the nails. Well, I used to love to play with that industrial magnet because it was so powerful. I'd turn it around and I'd try to get the two positives or the two negatives together. And guess what happened? You couldn't make them, you couldn't. They were so strong. You'd have to turn it around. You know, there's that balance that's constantly happening. It's balancing. That's why I'm going to offend everybody in this room right now. That's why politics is the way it is. You know what Will Rogers said? He said, Every child should have a Republican for a father and a Democrat for a mother. Now get ready to get offended, because remember, what was his name? Dave Barry. Dave Barry said that the difference between the political parties is that if you can listen to them during the songs, the Democrats clap off beat. The Republicans clap on the beat. And if you can't clap at all, you get a cabinet position. And then he said, and this is really going to offend everybody, he said, if you get a blowout and you're by the side of the road, a Democrat will always stop for you. And they'll try to help you, but unfortunately, they don't know how to fix your tire, and they'll set fire to the car. The Republican, on the other hand, knows perfectly well how to do it, but they'll never stop because they're afraid they're going to be late for Ugly Pants Night down at the country club. I thought that was funny. People, isn't that horrible? Isn't that terrible? Isn't it terrible to have a sense of humor? You see, what does your heart have? Your heart has a sense of humor. And if your heart doesn't have a sense of, if you don't, then you're not in your heart, because your heart thinks you're the funniest person on earth. My heart thinks I'm the funniest person on earth. Being relaxed, moving with it. And I grew up in San Francisco. There's no political correctness in San Francisco. Everybody's fair game. It's just the way it is, okay? But each one of us, some of our families, we were taught to be very, very serious. And everything's to be taken seriously. And then the only humor there is ridicule. But you know what? There's a light-hearted, light-footed, lighter attitude. You want to get in touch with what really is? You move into the now moment. You be here now, and the now moment is always moving you to a different level, to do a different thing, to not do the thing that you thought that you were supposed to do. I thought I was supposed to wait 20 more years to become a minister, because that's the logical thing. You're going to raise your money, you're going to save it, and no. I was supposed to go in there on a wing and a prayer and just trust and let go. And in your life, there's a time to plan, and there's a time to let go. There's a time to stand up, there's a time to release. So, we're going to move into time, so just kind of open up, let go of all the stuff you're holding on to. Let go of all that. And just move into this now moment. And once again, get in touch with your heart. Move into this now moment. Move into your heart space. Touch your heart with your hand. Your heart is always there. It's already there. Your heart already knows what you need to know. Your heart will move you. Will move circumstances and outcomes in your life. Your good spiritual heart will bring to you what you need and will release what needs to be released. Your heart will move you into an awareness of this now moment that doesn't take itself too seriously. When Jesus said, "Do not judge," he was saying, let go of the judgment of the head and move to the discernment of the heart. And so once again, touching your heart space and feeling the energy there. Ask or share with your heart whatever is on your heart to share. And then listen. My heart already knows. And listen. And my heart speaks to me mostly as a feeling and a faith, a knowing and a trust. Thank you, God. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And so it is. And now take a deep breath and let it out. And set aside all the papers in your hands. And just open yourself to the safety of this now moment. And once again, take a deep breath and let it out. And open your hands. And then take one hand and place it over your heart. The heart already knows what is needed. Whatever questions you might have, whatever you may have walked into this room with, your heart already knows what is needed. And so move into your heart. By putting your hand over your heart, you can feel the energy in your hand. You can feel the energy in your heart. And this centers you. My heart is the fullness of God in expression. I have a good heart, a deep heart. Every answer I am seeking speaks to me from my heart. I find a wellspring of peace in my heart of hearts. I find that my body becomes quiet and at ease. My emotions become calm, serene, and comforted. My mind becomes more and more still as I move into my heart of hearts. Whatever seems to be coming my way, my heart is my refuge and my strength. In my heart, I find great courage. My courageous heart is more than able to meet every circumstance in my life. My steadfast heart is a star that shines, giving me a sense of well-being, strength. My powerful heart is connected with the heart of God and opens me up to my intuitive guidance, to the peace of God, to the love and the light of God. And as I find my rest here in my heart, I find a greater strength and flexibility. I am not locked into any one solution. I release all stress. And I find myself in my inner heart swaying with the winds of life, like a tall birch tree swaying in the wind. I become open and receptive to my intuitive guidance. And I take a moment to establish a rapport with my heart, asking, speaking, and listening to my heart. Mostly the heart speaks with a quiet faith and strength. I ask my heart, listen to my heart. I am more than capable of meeting everything in my life with courage, faith, and strength. I am aligned and attuned with my highest good, and I move it forward with great faith, gratitude, and a sense of peace and well-being. Thank you, God, for my good heart. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And so move into this time with an affirmation. And our affirmation for our time of giving is, I give with my whole heart and I receive abundantly. Together? I give with my whole heart and I receive abundantly. And silently. And again aloud together. I give with my whole heart, and I receive abundantly, and so it is. Amen.